Okay, so we'll make a start there. So welcome to this afternoon's webinar, Smartsheet for Operations, Supply Chain, Logistics and Customer Service. So by way of a quick agenda, I'm just going to cover PPS, so who we are, Project Plan Services. I'd like to then touch on Smartsheet as a solution, because for those of you who are not currently using Smartsheet, give you a bit of an introduction to that, and then I'm going to hand over to my colleague Andrew, who will talk you through Smartsheet for Operations with some case study discussion and some practical demonstration using the solution, and then finally we'll finish off with Q&A. You do have the facility to post questions on the Q&A tab down at the bottom of your screen. We have my colleague George Ridge on the call, who is available to answer questions, so feel free to post questions as you're going along, and we'll either try to answer them as we're going along or at the end. Okay. So, Project Plan Services, PPS, bit about us, for those of you who don't know us, formed in 2008, so about 12 years ago, initially signed up as a Microsoft partner specializing in Microsoft Project Server, and more recently Project Online. We've been a partner with Smartsheet for quite a while now, since 2013, and more recently last year we became the first platinum partner for Smartsheet in the UK. We are on the government G Cloud framework, so we are able to advise government clients, government departments, local councils on Smartsheet and Smartsheet licensing, and indeed we provide Smartsheet licensing for all clients. Consultancy and training is a big item there for us, so being able to help you and your organizations look at your particular problems and use cases and recommend appropriate solutions, and then providing the training on those solutions for you. We provide systems integration, so we can help connect your business systems to Smartsheet via the API or some of the connector apps that are available to support that. And then finally, we stay in touch with you to support and essentially handhold, if you like, in the early days of your Smartsheet implementation and ongoing into the future. So we're at arm's length, or a telephone call or an email away. That's a bit about us. So Smartsheet then. So some of you on the call, I'm sure, have used Smartsheet before. Some of you haven't, so let's just have a quick look at what Smartsheet is. Smartsheet, as this slide depicts, is what we call a work execution platform. It is a cloud-based application that you can access from pretty much anywhere, mobile friendly, as long as you've got an internet connection, of course. It can help you to plan, capture, manage, automate, and do away with repetitive tasks, and report on work more efficiently. So just to kind of expand on that a little bit, we talk about the nature of work falling into two categories: structured and unstructured work. So structured work we're all fairly familiar with, I'm sure, particularly coming from or looking at things from a project management perspective. Structured work, you could be projects that are initiated, that have a beginning, they have a delivery phase, and ultimately they have a closure, and the project is completed and the benefits are delivered. However, the lion's share, and as this kind of piece of research indicates on this slide, the lion's share of actual work that takes place in a business can be, for example, 60% is unstructured work. Unstructured work that doesn't fall into a particular pattern necessarily, and is fast moving. Okay, so there's a tremendous amount of effort that is ongoing in an organization. Questions around, is it actually contributing to the greater good, i.e. the business strategy and the things that are important to the business, or is work straying off in a different direction? and not necessarily adding key business values. So applications like Smartsheet, where we look at work management, that can help plan, manage, track, and collaborate on this unstructured work as well. It can help surface that work, report on it, whilst not constraining the flexibility that you need around how you structure that work, and basically cover the whole strata. Okay, so fixed work, fixed structure work, and unstructured work, and that's one of the great things about Smartsheet, is that it makes it easy to achieve that across the whole piece. So this slide kind of describes Smartsheet's usage across a typical organization. So there are over 2,000 documented use cases, and typically, certainly where we've come from in the past, we in the early days tended to focus on project management solutions, but more latterly, we have helped organizations get the most out of Smartsheet, where it helps to address use cases and challenges for all parts of a business, not just project management. So that kind of unstructured work, if you like, across all different aspects within a business. Okay, so think about Smartsheet being a collaborative work management solution. It's work management rather than just solely project management. So anyway, hopefully that gives you a bit of context around what Smartsheet as an application is geared towards. So without further ado, I want to sort of hand over to my colleague Andrew. Andrew's worked with Kpis for many years now on different projects, I will let Andrew introduce himself, and Andrew's going to take us through Smartsheet specifically geared for operations, supply chain, logistics, and customer service. So, Andrew, over to yourself.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Thanks for that introduction. So just a little bit about myself. I am an operations person rather than an IT person. And I've worked in operations in supply chain, logistics, customer service, and manufacturing for many years. And the one thing that I've often found is that operations guys are left to fend for themselves. So you might have extremely sophisticated IT systems, ERP systems, etc., which are doing, as Peter mentioned, the sort of core structured work, so processing the orders, doing the marketing and the sales and the finance and all that kind of thing. But when it comes down to operations and the operational teams trying to improve things for themselves, they often find that they might have access to lots of data, but not necessarily information. So there could be lots and lots of data available on orders, products, etc., which is coming off these main systems. But in order for them to be able to have a look at track trends and generally put in tools to help improve things, very much left to sort of fend for themselves, and can end up using Excel and emails typically for sharing information. So a lot of work tends to be done in Excel, and then that is shared around the sort of operational teams by email, which is obviously not the greatest use of people's time. And I found this in all ranges of companies, from small SMEs right up to a £1 billion turnover FTSE 100 organisation. And this can often result in, the operational managers, up late at night producing board packs, frantically searching through emails to find the right attachments that have come through, the right Excel files. Is it version 2 or version 3 that they need to get the information from? So it just makes life very hard on top of what can be an already sort of difficult and challenging job taking place. Now, just a little bit about productivity. It's often said that the UK lags behind other countries in the West. Actually, looking at a recent OECD survey, we're actually currently behind countries like Bulgaria, which doesn't make particularly happy reading. And this productivity, I'm convinced, is through a lot of this unnecessary tasks that are having to take place, which generally detract from the operational guys being able to concentrate their time and effort on where they really should be in getting the operations to perform better. And in a lot of cases, the low-hanging fruit has already been picked. So all the big improvements about how we can increase productivity by 20%, 30%, 40%, those opportunities were seized sort of many years ago, and there just aren't those kind of things around now. And if there's often a huge inertia towards starting any major transformation programs, mainly because of cost and complexity and the sort of risk associated with the business. So I'm a big believer in marginal gains. For those of you who don't know, this is a sort of theory that Dave Brailsford and British Cycling sort of brought to prominence in the sort of 2000s. And what Dave Brailsford and the British Cycling team did, they said, okay, if we want to improve performance, we can't go out there and find the single one thing that's going to improve things by 20%, 30%. But what we can do is look for the smaller gains, sort of the 1%. And obviously, if you can find 20 ways of improving productivity or your performance by 1%, the overall effect is getting to that 20% figure. And what they did was took a holistic view. So they didn't just look at the bikes themselves, although they did do some work on sort of helmets and toe clips and all that kind of thing. But they started looking at the whole sort of piece and, how could they make riders perform better, in terms of diet and things like that. And they went really to the sort of nth degree in just trying to get these tiny marginal and incremental gains to help improve performance. And as everybody can remember I'm sure from the 2012 Olympics, British cycling really sort of came to prominence then. So it really did work in that environment. And this is a sort of viewpoint that we can easily take forward into lots of other areas of business. Rather than look for the single big gains in productivity, let's look for the smaller ones, but more of them to try and get that cumulative effect. If you think about it, if you save just 5 minutes a day and can use that time more effectively, that equates to about a 1% gain in productivity. 10 of these small improvements would give you about 10%. So what can we do to try and get some small, marginal and incremental improvements? But before I talk about that, let me just give you a bit of an example. This is a real case example of a company I worked with. They're a manufacturer and distributor of bathroom equipment, and one of their largest operational costs was transport. So transport costs were a critical KPI to the business, from the logistics managers up to the main board. The transport manager used to fill out a horrendous spreadsheet in Excel for the previous week's performance. It hadn't been designed particularly well. He'd inherited it. It had several years all on the same tab. So it was a nightmare to navigate around and to put the information in. And he would have to copy and paste information from that spreadsheet into another spreadsheet to give a sort of summary view. And that had to be emailed to senior management every Wednesday evening. And you can just imagine some of the sort of mistakes that would take place. Data entered in the wrong place, even formulas overwritten, all that kind of thing. And in a very busy office with the phone ringing incessantly and a constant stream of drivers coming in and out, there were a fair number of mistakes. And also the process was so complicated that only the transport manager could actually complete it. So what happened when he was sick or on holiday? I'm not sure if that sounds familiar to anyone, but I've certainly seen it on more than one occasion. But what if a lot of this process could be automated, where only entering data once, or better still, just copying and pasting the data in, or even better, directly importing the data? And what if the data input was into an application that would automatically generate a dashboard with KPIs and reports accessible to everybody who needs them, and that information was available instantly? Well, this is what Smartsheet can offer. Some people might say, well, why bother with yet another system? Just get the IT department to sort this out. That sounds fine in theory. In practice, you generally find that operations are somewhere near the back of the queue. So they're left to improvise with often the only tools available to them, which is inevitably Excel and emails. So let's have a look at what Smartsheet can do to help us out. So here we have an operations dashboard. This has just got some example data and example categories in. It can be very easily configured to meaningful information for your particular business. But just to give you a quick run through, so we've got monthly sales and year-to-date sales figures, how we're doing actual against budget order value, because obviously the quantity of sales, the number of orders, and the value has a direct impact on the workload coming through operations. So just some simple key metrics here and values which have been pulled through Smartsheet, and a very simple chart there just showing us the actual against the budget. So you can see there, an actual figure and a budget figure. On the left-hand side, we've got some links. So this dashboard is not only displaying information, it's also a bit of a landing page to be able to access other sheets which are supplying the information that's coming through here. So we'll have a look at those in a couple of minutes. So on this dashboard, we've got some customer services information. Again, just sort of typical KPIs that I've seen in several companies: customer complaints, customer satisfaction, calls answered, sales order error rate. But as I say, these could be configured to whatever's important to your business. So we've just got monthly and year-to-date figures, and just very simple line chart. They would say a picture paints 1,000 words, so just matching how the actual performance compares to what the targets are. A couple of reports here as well, located on the dashboard, so that you can actually dive down a bit deeper into some of the information. So this customer satisfaction report is just looking at anywhere where the customer satisfaction is not as would be required. So it's just sort of reporting by exception, and it's where it's sort of less than 95%, I think I set that at. So it's just putting that data through if people wanted to look at that. And then the customer service KPIs. This is a summary of the figures above, but giving things on a weekly basis and going across the categories there and matching against order value. Then we've got a section, logistics. So in the warehouse environment, the sort of picks, number of order picks are generally key critical. So actual number of picks and pick compliance, i.e., is the warehouse clearing all of their workload during a shift or during a day? A couple of sort of transport type ones here: complete and on-time delivery, COTD, monthly, year to date, and again how they're doing against the target. And cost per consignment may or may not be relevant, but could be configured to whatever's important. So we're just looking at the costs here, the monthly and the yearly against the target. Also on the right-hand side here, sort of number of deliveries, any supplier issues, and any customer quality issues. And we've got a couple of reports here showing KPIs for the weekly warehouse and the transport KPIs. Finally, at the bottom, what is obviously becoming more and more important for reporting is health and safety information. So accidents, reportable accidents, near misses, and just a little bit there for waste and recycling. So a bit of the sort of HSEQ, the health and safety, environment and quality information coming through there as well. Now that could be expanded depending on the needs of an individual business. Okay. So what's actually driving this dashboard? Where is it getting the information from? Well, it's coming from this particular sheet here, which is a summary sheet. And this summary sheet is collecting information on a weekly basis. That is then being summarized into a monthly basis here. And any figures coming through are being compared against targets or budgets, which are in this top row here. Okay. So what we can also do, just a bit about Smartsheet for those who are not so familiar. You'll see that we've got columns running across the top here with the different items that we are measuring. And we've actually got dates running vertically down, which is perhaps sort of 90-degree view, 90-degree switch on what you might have in Excel, where you might have all of these items running down as rows and dates running across as columns. Now, the reason for doing this is that this enables you to use a lot of the key Smartsheet functionality in terms of being able to produce these reports that we saw on the dashboard, and to drive all sorts of other things, automated workflows, and many other aspects of the Smartsheet application. Now, another really useful feature in Smartsheet is the filtering feature, which allows you to actually save filters against a particular sheet. So in this way, you can ensure that everybody is looking at the same data at the same time. You don't get into the scenario where if you've got a complex Excel sheet, depending on what order you apply the filters, can have a dramatic effect on the data you're actually seeing. So just as a quick illustration here, if obviously this sheet is being used as a sort of repository for collecting and summarizing a lot of data, but if we just wanted to tidy it up and just look at the monthly totals, then just by putting a filter on monthly, we've got that there, and also got one on weekly, so we're just extracting the weekly information. And this symbol here shows that it's being shared, so that anybody shared into this particular sheet will have the ability to see these filters as well, which is absolutely great. So let's just knock that off for a moment. Okay, so let's just go back to dashboard. So let's have a look at where that summary sheet is getting information from. So this is the customer service input sheet. So we've just got some sort of target values here on the left-hand side, budget order values, some customer complaints and customer satisfaction targets. And here is where we just enter the data into the yellow columns. So this is in its simplest form. The data could just be typed in week by week. If you have some system generated reports, which are in Excel, you could then copy and paste the information in. Or if you've got a lot of data coming through, I think as Peter mentioned earlier, you could actually use another application to pull the data directly into Smartsheet.
Yeah, there's Andrew, just on that, there's quite a few sort of options within the Smartsheet product family for integrating systems together. You know, typically Salesforce connectors or Jira or any kind of standard sort of systems that you normally find in a typical business.
Yep, that's right. Thanks, Peter. So here you see I've got data up until October. So I've just got, let me just push some data in here for November, and we can see what happens. Okay, so I'll just save that. Let's go back to the so let's go to the operations summary sheet. This formula here, you'll see it's picking out the last month, and it works out which is the last month based on today's date. So to set the example up initially, I pretended that we're still in November, but let's put today's date in, and there we go, 10th of December. So now it's saying, okay, let's look at November's figures. Okay, so let's save that. And here we'll see we've pulled various information through about the customer service information. So going on to the dashboard, we'll see we've now got figures coming through for October and November. We haven't got customer satisfaction there yet. I'll talk about that in a moment. But here you can see we've got the other data come straight through into these charts for November, and we'll have updated the monthly figures there. Okay, so customer satisfaction wasn't coming through. We've actually got this on a separate sheet, and the way we're collecting the customer satisfaction information is via another great piece of Smartsheet functionality, the web form. Okay. So let's just have a look at here. So we've actually got a form set up. Again, can be easily configured to exact needs. Just a very simple customer satisfaction survey, just with some simple things here, and this will pull straight back into the main sheet. And once it's done that, that will then update the various information in the Smartsheets and run through to the dashboard. So let's just try an example here. Let's put PPS. How do you place your order online? Let's just say it wasn't very good. No. Do better. So we'll submit that. And if we come back to here, our customer satisfaction survey, this blue circle here saying that we need to refresh to get some more data in. And here we are. Let me just put November date in here, because we're currently in December, so that would automatically come through. Here you see we've got the figures coming through there. So if I just save that, then go back to our dashboard, we'll hopefully see that, because we've only got one survey in there, the customer satisfaction, and we put some pretty poor scores in, you'll see that's pulled straight through there and it's caused our graph to plummet. And here you can see it's come through on the customer satisfaction report, PPS, there's only a score of 20%, and pulling through the comments as well. So you can see how from the input sheets, how it flows through straight to this dashboard, and the information you're looking on the dashboard is always the most up-to-date information. Okay, so that's refreshed it all for November. So what about logistics then? So we've got this logistics section here. So if I just go to logistics HSEQ input sheet, here we've got, again, our targets. We've got information in here weekly. So let me just put in some data for November. Let's save it, and if we go back to our dashboard, we can now see that we've got our November figures again come straight through. All the information bang up to date for November. I mentioned about the reports coming through. We've had the customer service reports above, and you can have the reports on the dashboard like this, transport KPIs, where you can just sort of scroll through and you're just sort of viewing the actual report. But you can also have it set up so that when you click on the report, it will actually go straight through to that source report. And here we are within the actual report that's supplying that information with all of the information. Another very useful aspect of Smartsheet is that if you needed to send this this report, just an example, as a hard copy, you can send it as an attachment, a PDF attachment, and you can schedule it. So we could say weekly on a Wednesday, starting today. We want to send it at 5 o'clock. And that will then send every week. So the example I talked about earlier with the sort of with the transport office having to send these reports out on every week on a Wednesday, and the number of steps they had to go through to do that. Using Smartsheet, when we implemented it there, it just meant that they were entering data into the main logistics input sheet, and then everything else all flowed. So the dashboard came straight through to any mobile device, sort of tablets. So the operations director had an iPad, so she could see immediately what the latest information was. Could carry that iPad around to various meetings, so always had information on tap, rather than the conventional, the hardback book and a fistful of papers and trying to rifle through them to find the right information. So, you know, absolutely great functionality, and these reports that had to go out every Wednesday to Uncle Tom Cobley and all were all automated via this process. Okay. So, just a little bit about the dashboard itself. The dashboard is made up of what we call widgets. So you can have a sort of key metric widget come through, you can have a chart, a shortcut, a report, image, title, rich text, or web content. So you just target various information from Smartsheet sheets themselves or reports, and then pull that information through to the dashboard and rearrange it to suit. So now you can see how we've actually pulled that dashboard together. Okay, so let me just.
And Andrew, can I just check then? So with the example of the dashboard there, would it also be possible to have different flavors of that dashboard for different stakeholders in different parts of the process?
It certainly would. You could, even though the categories I've got there, they're sort of determined by the source sheets. So if you didn't want the sort of customer services bit in there, that could be easily taken out. Or if you wanted some other aspect, if you wanted to increase the amount of metrics and reporting showing on the dashboard for environmental, for argument's sake, that could very easily be done as well. So with some very simple reconfiguration, you could get that information coming straight through to the dashboard and giving you this real key bit of information that is readily available for guys and is constantly up to date.
Okay, thank you, brilliant.
Okay. So the operations dashboard, we had all the key information and KPIs all in one place. The figures and charts updated automatically. It's a single source of truth. Again, this is absolutely critical. I worked in one company where in order to work out one particular figure associated with transport costs, it depended very much on how you interpreted different things. And with the transport company working off a different accounting calendar to the client, it caused all sorts of confusion. And you generally found that depending on who it was, they calculated some of these sort of transport costs in slightly different ways. So by putting Smartsheet in, we got agreement right across the business that everybody would use the Smartsheet calculations as the single source of truth, and suddenly everybody then was looking at the same figure. The actual figure itself, of course, was not as important as the trends, so that's what everybody's looking for, whether we're doing better or worse than had been anticipated or against target. So we saw how the dashboard was a landing page for access to other information, to the various sheets. As I mentioned, it's accessible on mobile devices. Works extremely well on tablets and phones as well. All you need to do is download the app. If you have a large multi-site organization, there's another great Smartsheet bit of application here called Smartsheet Control Center. And this enables you to ensure consistency of information across different sites or different areas of the business, different projects, different initiatives, and is able to consolidate all information together as well. So if you did have a multi-site business, I've worked in several distribution businesses which have multiple sites up and around the country, sometimes internationally as well. This would enable you to have central control of the KPIs and the key metrics to make sure that everybody is reporting in the same way and the same items, and rolling all those up into a sort of central summary view. So it doesn't come as part of the standard Smartsheet functionality, but it is available there. So absolutely fantastic if you're in the sort of multi-site environment for making sure that everybody's doing the same thing. So just a little bit of a summary on the dashboard. So we saw how we've got these different inputs coming through. So there's the customer service input sheet feeding through to the operations summary sheet. There's a customer satisfaction survey web form coming through to customer satisfaction sheet, again to the operations summary sheet. And the logistics and HSEQ input sheet feeding through to this summary sheet. And that is actually coming forward into the operations dashboard. So driving all of that information. So the information is being funneled through into the central dashboard, which is actually giving all of this key information in one place.
So Andrew, whilst you got this slide up, can I just ask that there's obviously kind of a lot going on here. Would you say that this potential solution is geared more towards large organisations, or could it indeed sort of scale at a smaller level for smaller companies?
Now, it can equally well be used from your small SME company right up to your large, FTSE 100. So it's extremely adaptable, very scalable as well. You could have multiple input sheets coming through into a summary sheet and then feeding through to a dashboard. So it is totally scalable based on the size of the business. It's just that the key thing with any dashboard is being clear on what information you want to display there and what are the key metrics and the KPIs that want to be reported on. But once you've established that, it's then a question of working out how you obtain that information and then summarize it to put it through to the dashboard. But very, very applicable to all sizes of business.
Okay, excellent. That's great. Thank you.
Okay. So I mentioned about it being Smartsheet being able to be used across all sorts of different devices, with iPads, for example. With one particular client, they had a big issue with quality, and they were sourcing product from China, Far East. That product to come into the goods in area of the warehouse. There'd then be sample inspections done. And what would traditionally happen would be that the quality inspector would go out with his hardback book. He would perform these sample inspections, writing everything down, then go back to his office, type it all into the computer, into an Excel spreadsheet, then attach that Excel spreadsheet to a email and email it off to the technical guys who were actually in a different country, for them to sort of see the any exceptions and any issues that were there with the suppliers. So by putting Smartsheet in, we gave the inspector an iPad. He entered the information straight into the iPad. It then eliminated all of that going back to the office to type stuff in, the necessity to send emails, because as soon as he had entered it into the iPad and saved it, it automatically went back to the main Smartsheet and alerted the relevant technical people of the various issues. So again, everybody's working off the right information. People weren't struggling to see which version of the Excel exceptions report were they looking at. It was a single version of the truth, and dramatically increased the amount of inspections that the inspector could actually carry out on a daily basis, because the burdensome administrative side of things was taken away almost altogether. So just another example, just to come back to this productivity sort of monologue I came out with earlier, making that inspector so much more productive, so he could actually check and inspect far more products during a day. Okay. So, are there any further questions?
Yes, I had a quick question from Richard, who's on the call right now. He has, or he's basically got Smartsheet, and he's hoping that he can configure it to allow customers to put in specific requests for delivery items. How easy would that be to sort of integrate customer requests, and also the ability for customers then to kind of update or see the latest position on their requests and potentially see updates on the progress of that request?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of approval processes that are available within Smartsheet. So things like requests could come through via, whether it's via a web form or somebody entering via a report or directly into a sheet. That could then go for approval, and it could be a multi-stage approval if required. So it might go to person A if it was one particular type of request, or person B if it's a different type of request, or it could even go to person A for requests up to a certain value, and then person B if for greater than that value, and those requests then can be notified once they've been approved, notified back to the customer, if you like, so that they would get automated emails coming back saying that their request had been approved. And if you wanted to give them full visibility, you could always send out a report or give them access to the sheet, and you could enable them to have just a view-only access, so that they can't actually change any information. And you could obviously filter that so they're only just seeing what information is relevant to them. So a great question, and all of that is sort of standard functionality within Smartsheet.
Okay, thank you. And question from Harry, how long does typically this kind of operations dashboard and associated items take to set up in terms of kind of implementation?
Yeah, to produce the dashboard that we've had a look at, just sort of tailoring it slightly to an individual's customer requirement. We're probably talking about a day, that's all, to get that up and running. If you wanted something sort of a lot more reconfiguration, well, we'd obviously need to look at that on a sort of case-by-case basis, but sort of out of the box with a little bit of tailoring to the what's important to an individual business can be done in as little as a day.
Okay, that's great to hear. Final question before we finish, we're just coming up to the hour, is in terms of sort of people challenges, kind of sort of putting this solution in place and kind of sort of driving adoption. Any sort of good tips for that, or indeed things to avoid?
Well, what I have found is that Smartsheet is very readily adopted by particularly operations people, from warehouse and shop floor level all the way through to board level. It takes a little bit of familiarization because, as I mentioned earlier, in some cases you may have a sheet set up where it's perhaps almost a 90-degree flip around from what you might have in Excel. But once somebody can see the benefits of what Smartsheet can offer in terms of eliminating those Excel sheets and the emailing and all that kind of thing, and enabling them to get on with the actual productive work that they need to, I've found that the uptake has been very, very high. And I've worked a lot with guys in warehouses and logistics environments, and yeah, once you overcome the initial, this looks strange and I'm not sure about this, once they actually start using it and see the benefit, you generally find that they're then knocking on the door saying, oh, could we use it for this? Could we use it for that? Do you mind having a look at this for me? So, it really is an absolutely fantastic tool.
Yeah, and certainly, no, thank you for that. Certainly, my experience is, I can count on one hand, or probably less on one hand, if that's possible, the number of people who sort of come back to us at PPS and sort of said, well, Smartsheet is too difficult, or it's too difficult to drive, too difficult to use. It's almost entirely the opposite comment. So people, as you say, do love it. Okay, well, thank you. Thanks so much, Andrew. That concludes questions for now. We're kind of virtually out of time, so yeah, if you've enjoyed this webinar and it sort of raised any sort of further questions, then feel free to get in touch with us and we'll do our best to address those questions. We will be sending a link out to the video after this session. And it's been great having you all on board today, and for your questions. I'd like to thank Andrew, obviously, for your time and input in delivering this session. Also, my colleague George, who's been available answering questions. And on behalf of myself and PPS, I'd like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and festive period, and we look forward to speaking with you again in the new year for our next webinar, which will be in February. Okay, so many thanks for now, and enjoy the rest of your day.